Yo, it's ODB from OLP. This is issue 85 of Mini Truckin Magazine. January 98, kicking off a new year. A couple of things I did want to clarify. So I kind of consider this a group effort, although I've done a lot of the heavy lifting and I'm going through these magazines. I certainly appreciate when other people chime in. Jason Redden did that on Instagram, and he helped me find one thing that I need to clarify. So summer 1990 issue did have stock wheels on the cover truck. So I had it listed differently in my database. I had it like Nissan stock, and that was because when I started the database early on, I had a little bit different way of going about things. So I updated that. So there were actually 4 cover vehicles, cover trucks that had stock wheels. So again, I appreciate when you guys chime in. We also had another reader or a viewer chime in, and this is something I waited forever to cover and I forgot. From July 98 to August 90, no, July 98 to August 98, what changed? The logo finally changed. So we went from the original logo from issue 2 all the way to July 98, around the time when Courtney was coming in. Ironically enough, like the viewer had pointed out, you would have thought that they would have waited to the 10th anniversary possibly, but they did it on the 10th anniversary preview, which was August 98. So the logo changed from OG to the new school. So there was that transition. I wanted to cover that. And it's funny because I get going with all of the facts and the different things, and I tend to forget the big stuff, which was the logo changing. But here's what we have. So January 98, Courntey Halowell, rest in peace, shot this at Texas Heatwave 98. So this is, January 99. Courtney shot this at Heatwave 98. So it would have been about 6 months prior, give or take. You have Duck here. So we've had Duck on. He talked about the epic cover and I think it was his friend that was sitting in the front seat. You have Ghetto Bob here. These trucks on these multi truck covers, as I call them, or group photos. These I tend to kind of count Ghetto Bobs and Ducks as like the primary 2 vehicles because they're front and center, if you will. Courtney did this in the past. We'll see this again on the magazine. And I think it's a very cool concept. And the theme of this one, this issue that Courtney writes about is kind of the unity. There's a lot of different clubs. It's not one particular club and things like that. So I thought this was cool. Ghetto Bob's truck goes on to be featured in Street Trucks because we know what happens, in the year of 99. I don't think it was ever featured technically in Mini Truckin, but it did get its cover, if you will, here. And then again, Duck, this thing was running the show circuit crazy everywhere. And if you look, there's a lot of trucks we'll see in the show coverage here, including this badass Ranger. I believe that is Radar's Isuzu. So again, you could kind of slice and dice, and I think that is Low Migo back there. I think Rob had talked about that as well, and we've talked about that with Radar. So you can slice and dice, and you could say, all of these trucks were cover trucks, but I think from a logistical standpoint, it's easy to say, hey, these are the 2 front and center trucks. Also, for this cover, I did credit Colorado Custom. These are the Boulders. You could also say, I think these were the Budnicks. You could also say, but again, I think if you really were to credit, you would either say, don't credit any of the wheel companies, or those are the primary ones you can see, which are the Colorado Custom. So again, just a little bit of insight into how I slice and dice things. You may agree. If you don't, let me know in the comments. I definitely appreciate the feedback. All right, so if we look at minis, we see here a solid amount of features, which includes a little preview there of that awesome Ranger. You have above there, you'll see worldwide mini truck directory. They started kind of doing that in the January issues, I think. You have the events listed. There's a feature there that kind of made it down there because I think it was a car. And then here you have the wider photo. So you can see a little bit more, including the green Toyota there, the S10, and then the yellow Ranger on the left. And you've got the S10, looks like the Mitsubishi, the Sonoma, Pathfinder possibly there. And then you have, this was a really cool truck, this Mazda with the Phantom Grille. But there you can kind of see cover photo. Credit goes to MT Editor-in-Chief, Courntey Halowell. So, you got MIC West Side right there in that ad that we've seen a couple of times. I did scan through this again last night, and, you know, Courtney just talks about being, the theme of this one is, you know, there's people from different clubs. He said, heck, if you look at the cover, it's not just one particular club or one particular truck. And he says, don't get me wrong, the main focus of these events is the trucks and cars that are bidding for the precious trophies, but inevitably the enthusiasts who own these vehicles strike up conversation, share ideas, and become friends. And just was a really good editorial, I thought, this month. Again, we're looking at issue 85. It's kicking off the year of 1999. And if you were alive during this era and part of the scene, you know, it was a good time. We were all thinking what was going to happen with Y2K at the end of this year. And that was a crazy thing, crazy time. But to kick off, you know, it kind of, you know, with Courtney in charge here, you know, the magazine's going really well, in my opinion. 99 was a big transition year. Obviously, there's going to be things that change. And we'll talk about that stuff when we kind of get to it. Let's see here. We got Load Down Showdown 3. This was by Lance. There's some of the nightlife cruising. Reminds me of Camp and Drag. Here, if the feature never said it, I always would look at the awards to see. So we know June 19th to the 21st, 1998, which is, again, about 6 months prior. That gives us that insight into when the show was. And again, usually it was in the write-up, but not always. Here's Lomigo again. And that Nissan, those colors, I think that was a NC Texas, or it's hard to tell from that plate. Yeah, Texas plate. Here you go. You have another Geo. Pretty clean stuff. And Hardbody there. You have the giveaway still going on, and then the rest of the coverage here is still not all in color. Mike Anderson, Nissan Hardbody. Pretty cool awards, those glass awards. I'm sure those are ones that people do end up keeping just because they look good. And for any of you guys that have old one awards, did you keep them? Did you get to a point where they collected dust and you threw them out or recycled them? I'm curious. Back in the day, some of you guys, like our friend Eddie Gordy, you know, he won them, and they were a lot of like plastic, you know, back in those early days. And, you know, kind of curious what you guys do with them. I think sometimes they're kept, sometimes they're tossed. Drop yours. So Joe Greaves, he was all up and down the East and West Coast. And I say that because that's what it says there, but it says here, Greenville, North Carolina, Slam Sessions 98, Animated Attractions is one of the oldest clubs in the Carolinas and whatnot. So, First in Flight. If you guys like what we're doing here, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. Really appreciated. I always remember seeing this thing a little bit different with the louvers, and that was the, as I mentioned recently, the same valence. Kind of hard to believe I had that valence, like I said, probably less than a year maybe, because I started really jumping into the truck and doing more, having more done by Matt Torgerson back in that era. So here's Bulletproof. I think a really badass feature, photography by Tom Lutz and Courtney Halowell. Easily could have been, you know, in my book, you know, a cover truck. I love the background, some kind of heavy machinery type stuff. And we start getting into the era where a lot of the trucks are body dropped, you know, but still, I think this thing is really, really, really clean. Really clean. If you go to pretty much any podcast app, if you got an iPhone, many of you do, the purple pre-installed app called Podcasts. Just search OLP or Our Lifestyle Podcast. You'll see that famous graphic disorder artwork, which we call our River Run artwork. Some of that stuff is still available on our website, ourlifestylepodcast.com. If you want to show some love, go place an order. Mike and Shannon typically do mail that stuff out. Although we can't get a hold of Mike. Apparently people are texting me saying they're still getting their stuff, so maybe he's not 100% AWOL. We'll have to see. So here's the heat wave coverage. The Ford Ranger. There you go. That's the one on the left side on the cover. Really clean. I mean, I dig these trucks. I mean, especially, you know, that one. It looks really, really good. There's the Toyota we can see as well. I'm guessing that's in the back of the Toyota. Pretty cool. Here's Ghetto Bob with next to Lomigo. The next level that was across the windshield. And then Bill Carlton's van. This van is brought up on the upcoming episode of OLP. We've talked about it a little bit with Cope, I think with Cope, with Pat Nickel and others. But that van, famous van. So here was the calendar. And you talk about a wider angle photo. A little bit of a glare. There you go. Boom. And look, this guy, he just happened to turn around at the wrong time. You can see, if you were in this photo, chime in. If you remember. For the Spring Splash 94 shoot, the first one that Courtney did, I mean, we have tagged, I think that's Duck. We have tagged almost everybody we can. And actually, Troy Hamilton chimed in. He's in that photo, and he had given me some intel on one of the K-Daddy photos we posted that Corey Brown, I think, had shared with us. And he said, yeah, that was Spring Splash 94. So again, it's a group effort in my mind, you know, to get some of these facts right, and certainly appreciate it. I do my best to get them right on my side, but always thankful for the feedback. There, I think that is what, maybe a Blazer. The Sinister, that made me think of the yellow full size that was painted by Cal Concepts, because it had a windshield banner similar to that. But, you know, looking at the roof rack, that's definitely not, you know, a 1500 with a topper. But this was the calendar. This was the calendar. So we're continuing here with Heatwave. That peach truck was awesome, that Mazda. You have Duckman with the crazy Nissan. Again, we've had him on. We've talked about it. Here's the ground pound truck. That famous truck. Chrome rear axle. A little bit different engine that he had in that, typical than what you'd see at most mini trucks. I mean, this is a high-end mini built right there. In fact, my buddy Marlon Dunker that lives over near me, he had a high-end build S10 that he owned, and that was his competition there. And we talk about that. That truck was, of course, the ground pound truck was rebuilt, and Don owned it, and it graced the cover of Street Trucks. Here is a really killer S10. I always like this one. I'm a big fan of centerline wheels, but having that shaved body line just kind of hits different there. This, I think, is the truck that was in Severed that went on to grace the cover years later. I think that Pro Street, there weren't many of those. So pretty cool stuff there. Here's Radar. And I guess you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe that wasn't Radar's truck there. Because now that I think about it, it looks like a regular cab. And it's orange. That might be a Nissan. And look, because we can confirm here, even though it has the billet grille, it wasn't painted. I don't think so, right? It looks like it's in primer. It's hard to tell, but it does look like primer. So, again, we got to get those facts right. And it's a group effort. Sinister, I think this was Cope Kessler's company, or he worked there. We've seen those ads over the years, and that famous photo with his Blaupont van sitting in there. Okay, so here's Underground Element. And this was Randy Van Atkins of Alvin, Texas. It's got the Hancock wheels. When we had Bill Hancock on, we talked about how popular those wheels were. And just a different kind of build. You don't see a lot of this stuff these days. Real nice stereo, something fun to cruise in. A couple of them around. Reptilian, it's the bite that gets you. Real clean, hard body. Side tilt hood. Graphics. Pretty cool. Shot by Lance. And this was Pleasures. Now, you're going to see I am going to slow down a little bit with these. Definitely got some good feedback, but also try not to overload the content. I mean, that's really the big thing. I did play catch up there just a little bit, trying to kind of get back on track, and I kind of stomped the pedal for a couple weeks with, I don't know, 7, 8 flip-throughs. But certainly, I value you guys watching these as much as you can, and I just realized doing a weekly podcast and just dumping these one after another, and then throwing in some street trucks here and there, that's a lot of content. And again, the name of my game is I want to get through this stuff, but at the same time, I don't want to be too overwhelming. This is the club directory, kind of just flipping through it so you can stop if you need. A lot of different names over the years. Many clubs still around, some that aren't. Still got these in here. I know most people got sick of those things and probably just ripped them out. Talk about a billet front end, bumper, and phantom grille. Fuck, meet at McDonald's every Sunday. Anybody still have club meetings like that every month or every quarter, every year? Here's California Truck Jam. And that's Tylene Buck, I think, right there. She is heavy on Instagram in terms of with content. And check her out. She's still out there doing modeling stuff. Really clean S10. I dig these. It kind of reminds me of Diener's truck. Just a really clean truck with some nice wheels, and just, you just get in and cruise. Don't see this very often. Definitely didn't see it during that era very often. Here you have the Look That Kills on the left. That's when it still had the bar. Jeff Gaudette now owns that up in the Northeast. We have video from this show thanks to Steve Nielsen, and I've shared that in the past. And you see West Side here, they had a pretty cool setup. If I remember correctly, you had, of course, the Blazer, and then you had I think it was the Sonoma that was right over here. So, good stuff here. Got to thank Steve Nielsen for always doing those VHS tapes over the course of time and sending those out to his customers. Sorry about that. Here you can see some more coverage, super clean. This was a big thing in our scene, and that's why it still says and Sport Compacts and Compacts on the cover, because they wanted to open up a little bit. They probably thought, hey, it's also a way to get more subscribers, so think about that. In the video that I posted in the past, you can briefly see a little bit of the S10, and there it is out in the wild. Before it went under another transformation, you can see the disc changers back here that we saw in the feature. And there is a truck that we talk about this coming week, Tulo Taco. Really should have been on the cover, and I covered that in that issue, that it really wasn't, only because it was the 10th anniversary issue, I think. But at the end of the day, in my mind, that's a full-blown cover truck. So Flame Out. Can't forget the cars that played a huge role in this scene of ours. Got a little bit of lighting in there. Clean car. Well deserving of a feature. Getting down to the end here. Seems like this one went pretty quick. Again, please leave a comment. Subscribe if you can. Really appreciate it. Here's Mini Laughter. Top 5 uses for a cast-off shop rag. Ryan Fringling House. Notable quotables. You'll love it or well eat it. Hooker Creek Road. I think Hank used to live off Hooker Creek Road from Hammered Weekend Wear. I could be wrong. And then there you have it. So Bright Ideas. They had 4 or 5 in a row on the back, low glow. I always say Bright Ideas, but there you have it. This is issue 85, January 99. Courntey Halowell as the editor. Again, shout out to Ghetto Bob. Don't necessarily know him, but love to get him on one day. You got Duckman here. Classic cover. Courntey Halowell shot it. Rest in peace. What did I miss? Let me know. Again, we still have Ian Custom Compacts on the cover. Stay on the rise and have a great week, y'all. We got ya. Peace. Those boulders, though.